Just want to make a few quick points in relation to this week's topic. Argyris and Schon's theories of action. The key assumption is that we don't just act. We're not just programmed robots that simply carry out what we're programmed to do, but that we act based upon expectations and assumptions about how the world works, how the world is, and what it's going to do in response to our action. So we have these espoused theories that are often idealized ways of thinking about ourselves and our action, and what they call theories in action, which is what we actually do. Turning to these espoused theories, we make systematic errors in relation to attribution of cause, for example. When things go well for ourselves, we tend to blame ourselves. This is systematically a problem. And when things go badly, we often will, particularly those of us who have good self-esteem, will make this mistake even more commonly and blame the environment around us. Sometimes accurately, sometimes not. The fact of the matter is these errors are systematic. We generally lack self-knowledge as humans and lack of awareness of our own limitations. I often quote the figure that the vast majority of us think we're better drivers than the average driver. The vast majority of academics, for example, think we're better lecturers than the average lecturer. And the law of averages means that the majority of us cannot be better than average. The average sits at the mean level. Of course, there's some statistical fast footwork that I've done there, but basically that's correct. So these kind of systematic problems with how we think, the ideal way of thinking, causes us to blame others and not work on bilateral solutions, because instead of acknowledging the blame that we ourselves take for things not going well, we tend to inappropriately act as if the situation is wrong, or other people within the situation are wrong, and we go to try and cure a disease that does not exist. And we face resistance in doing so because everybody else has the same illusions of grandeur, the same illusions of power and ability that we do. And so we will face the same situation that you may find in a characteristic delusional state of two people who both think that they're Jesus Christ and realize when they encounter each other that that's no longer possible and have to work around that. And we gather and analyze evidence in a biased fashion. So we pay far greater attention to the material that we gather that supports our theories, and tend to ignore, however accurate, material that tends to discredit the theories that we hold falsely. So in terms of a cure for this problem, you could argue that emotional intelligence, the ability to understand oneself and others, could be a useful antidote to this kind of systematic problem. So emotional intelligence is a set of skills that includes awareness of self and others' ability to handle both emotions and relationships, ability to identify emotions in others. And so, for example, people with high EI, at least theoretically, are able to look at people's stills or videos of people's faces and accurately pick up what emotion they're actually feeling. Intuition, for example, the ability to manage your own emotions. So when you're angry, curtail that and express a more appropriate or useful emotion. An ability to manage other people's emotions. The ability to understand emotional complexities of what's going on in a workplace, which can get incredibly complicated at times. As you can imagine, this kind of skill set would be enormously useful in dealing with some of the problems that Argyris and Schon have identified. The problem is that EI, while you find in any amount of books and references, both in the popular literature and the academic literature to EI, is not really showing a lot of evidence as being a modifiable skill or talent or personality characteristic. There are intervention programs that seem to produce some short-term or mild long-term effects, but on the whole You've either got it or you don't have it. It's also possible, the evidence shows, that EI isn't really as unique a variable. It was actually popularized by a journalist, and perhaps that's where it should have stayed, in the field of journalism rather than in the field of academic thought, which is supposed to be about pursuit of things that are empirically or actually in the real world true. It's possible that EI, rather than being a unique new characteristic that we sometimes take it to be, is in fact probably just a constellation of characteristics that are probably better summed up by some of the traditional personality measures, like, Canoe, I use that as an acronym for the big 5 personality characteristics: conscientiousness, agreeableness, neuroticism, openness, and extroversion. Now, agreeableness and openness and low levels of neuroticism possibly explain everything that we're seeing in this EI characteristic, if it is a single characteristic. Just wanted to emphasize a few of these points.